On a winter night in 1959, 9 experienced hikers cut open their own tent from the inside. They fled barefoot into the darkness and head first into temperatures of -30 degrees. None of them survived. The Soviet government immediately opened an investigation into their deaths, but the physical evidence they uncovered was so contradictory that authorities quickly classified the files and sealed the case away from the public. The official Soviet investigation report recorded a single, highly unusual cause of death for the group: an unknown compelling force. That brief phrase launched a 60-year search for answers. Despite decades of scientific and forensic analysis, a single cause that explains every piece of evidence remains elusive. Igor Dyatlov and several members of his team held a Category 3 certification, the highest level of ski touring mastery recognized by the Soviet Union. This meant they were trained to survive the exact conditions that ultimately killed them. Their planned route pushed deep into the isolated Ural Mountains, targeting a slope on Kholat Syakh, the Mountain of the Dead. By February 1st, they camped on the exposed slope, ignoring a sheltered tree line just below them. For survivalists of this caliber, the decision to choose an unprotected, lethal campsite is the first of many anomalies that has never been explained. When the group failed to send a scheduled telegram, a search party went out. On February 26th, they found the tent. It had been sliced open from the inside. Curiously, all of the hikers' survival gear, heavy winter clothing, and food were left sitting entirely untouched inside. Following a trail of socked and barefoot prints down the mountain, the team found the first 2 bodies at the tree line. They had no shoes, and their hands were severely burned, indicating a desperate attempt to maintain a fire. Months later, 4 more bodies were found buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. 2 of these hikers had fractured ribs, and another had a crushed skull. The coroner determined the trauma was comparable to the impact of a high-speed car crash, yet there was no external bruising on the skin over those broken bones. Even stranger, several bodies exhibited an unusual orange discoloration to the skin, and one woman was missing her tongue, eyes, and parts of her lips. These injuries present a severe forensic contradiction. They point to a force that was simultaneously immense in power, yet precise enough to leave the outer tissues intact. The lead Soviet investigator, Lev Ivanov, spent 3 months attempting to process this scene. He initially prepared a report suggesting that an unknown natural phenomenon had triggered the group's flight. Ivanov's investigation was cut short when Soviet authorities abruptly ordered him to stop and classify the case. The files were locked away for 30 years. This is an original typewritten document from that investigation. The red text marks it as strictly secret. When the Soviet Union collapsed and the files were finally declassified, investigators found that key pages had been removed from the archive. The decision to treat a mountain accident as a state secret created a secondary layer to the mystery. Whether the motive was general bureaucratic secrecy or the concealment of specific evidence, the missing documents ensured the case remained a subject of intense speculation. This diagram illustrates a theory published in Nature Communications in 2021. It proposes a katabatic wind slab, a dense, heavy sheet of wind-driven snow that can suddenly slide down a shallow slope. This explains a blunt force impact that crushes ribs without bruising the skin, and it explains why the hikers violently sliced their way out of the tent. The lack of clothing is often attributed to a known medical phenomenon called paradoxical undressing. As a human body reaches the final stages of hypothermia, the brain can incorrectly signal that it is overheating, causing victims to remove their clothes in the freezing cold. This photograph shows a radar installation in a desolate area, suggesting the possibility of military testing in the region. Other theories suggest that mountain wind patterns created infrasound, a low-frequency sound wave proven to trigger extreme physiological panic and disorientation in humans. These theories provide models for the mechanical trauma, but they struggle to explain the group's behavior. An explanation for the injuries does not clarify why a survivalist would choose a deadly ravine over the secure tree line they had already reached. In 2020, the Russian government officially closed the books on the case, declaring the katabatic snow slab as the final answer. However, the families of the victims and many independent researchers still reject this conclusion. The official finding leaves several anomalies untouched, specifically the missing facial features, the orange skin discoloration, and the gaps in the original case files. We are left with the same facts found in 1959. 9 capable mountaineers sliced their shelter apart and ran barefoot into a deadly blizzard. The mountain holds the physical evidence, but the sequence of events remains incomplete, and we still do not know why.